Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of Finding Freedom here on Lions of Liberty. And before we get into today's show, I want to tell you guys about I Trust Capital. It's the #1 crypto IRA platform in the United States. You can self-trade cryptocurrency, physical gold and silver right in your retirement account. Now, you get the tax advantages of a traditional IRA. You get them while trading crypto and physical gold and silver. As an iTrust client, you're going to be able to log into your account and self-trade 24/7. Transactions are executed in real time and settle in seconds. They offer more than 25 crypto assets, and they're growing. They have transparent pricing. They have the lowest and most transparent costs in the industry by far, and they post the fees right up front so you can see them. iTrust is secure. They use Coinbase custody and Curve to secure your assets. iTrust also has over 1,500 overwhelmingly positive reviews on Trustpilot. Now, here's the kicker, guys. Special offer here. All you got to do is visit itrust.capital/lions and sign up today, open an account, move money from an existing 401k, whatever you got to do, and you're going to get $100 of Bitcoin when you fund your account. Go to itrust.capital/lions to sign up today.
We are born free, and we will die free. The time in between, though, that's complicated. In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Okay, we are live, streaming live to the Lions of Liberty Pride. If you're not a member of the Lions of Liberty Pride, or if you were a member, you could see this interview live. But probably you're hearing the recording if you're not a member. So I am here with Todd McMurtry. If you're familiar with that name, maybe you've heard it around the Nicholas Sandman defamation case, where he won a huge multimillion-dollar defamation settlement against CNN and the Washington Post. Todd is an attorney down in Kentucky. He's dabbled in politics a little bit. I don't know if we'll get to that. The primary point of this discussion is to talk about the Sandman case and defamation really as a whole, and really what elements are needed in order to build an argument, and then draw the parallels between that and Kyle Rittenhouse. Since defamation has been thrown around quite a bit in that case, I figured I would bring in an expert like Todd and to educate us all. So Todd, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you for making the time. I really do appreciate it. I think I saw you a week or two ago on one of the cable news shows talking about this case. So I figured I would reach out to you, talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, I should say. But maybe before we get into that, if you want to give a quick elevator pitch background about yourself, just to let people know who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, yeah, thanks. I live in Kentucky. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing here for about 30 years, so it's been a while. Actually, kind of in the greater Cincinnati area, so it's a little bit larger metro area than the rest of the state. I got into this defamation practice about 3 years ago when I was contacted by the Sandman family to represent their son, Nick. And since then have developed my practice is practically all defamation now. I still have some, traditional business type litigation cases that I used to do, but the defamation arena has really been great. Very interesting. It's a challenging area of the law. So it's been fun. And, personally, I'm been married for 35 years. I've got 3 adult kids and 2 grandkids, and, just trying to make the best of every day, keep it interesting.
Absolutely. So did you have a specialty in law prior to being contacted by the Sandman family? Did you have an expertise prior to defamation?
Yeah, I did a lot of business, what they call business tort litigation, kind of, fraud and the inducement to contracts, breach of fiduciary duties among business partners, a lot of what they would call business divorce. Business divorces can be as ugly as real divorces. You get partners in a business and somebody takes out a little too much money or stops working or leaves town, and people, their pocketbooks start getting strained and they get upset with each other. So I was pretty skilled at coming in and helping break up those companies and trying to avoid litigation, if possible, and if not, then going into court and litigating the cases. And I've litigated those cases, in front of juries and appellate courts and all that. So that was this is a challenging area. The thing that it has that's similar to defamation is that it's more interesting than doing slip and fall cases. I mean, those are fine cases to do, but as you practice for a long time, you're like, you want a new challenge. So it's interesting, complex area that presented some new challenges for me professionally. Yeah.
Absolutely. And just to, before we get into talking about the Nicholas Sandman defamation case, just to give people a review of that, a primer. I'm sure people remember, but of course, Nicholas was the Covington High School student who was plastered across, the liberal news headlines, the corporate news headlines, wearing his "Make America Great" hat. There was that video that showed what looked like him, when they didn't show the full clip of him instigating something with this Native American activist, Nathan Phillips. When in reality, when they showed the whole thing, there was another group there, I believe, called the Hebrew Israelites, that were really instigating with some vulgar language. And when you saw the whole thing happening, it was really this activist, Nathan Phillips, who was another instigator here of this confrontation. Right. And of course, the headlines painted Nicholas as this evil Trump white supremacist entitled kid. So this is all happening in the headlines. You get contacted by his family. How did that play out, and what elements did you see in the coverage with the Washington Post and CNN and whomever else that made you believe this would have a strong foundation for a defamation argument?
Yeah, so it was very interesting here in this community, the Northern Kentucky community, where Covington Catholic is one of the leading high schools, is probably about 400,000 people. And I'm telling you what, you could feel it everywhere you went. I mean, this place was on fire. Everybody was talking about it. Everybody was outraged. Felt like, the whole country was attacking the entire community. So it was a hotbed of dissent from the media around here, because we were watching the media attack this young man and his family, and they had to flee their home. There were death threats, bomb threats, all kinds of insanity going on at that time. And I was called in very early. I tell a funny story. I was headed to the gym with my wife on Sunday morning after this event, and all this was happening. I said, I bet I get a call on this. I was just kind of thinking, hopefully, that I would. And I did. Literally an hour later, I get a call. But what made this case compelling from the beginning is just, the fact that the media based its reporting off of this short 1-minute edited viral video, and they went all in. The racist, the anti-Native American, disrespecting a Native American elder, the whole narrative, agenda-driven narrative of kind of the woke corporatist media was in, on full display, and they were just going completely nuts. And, so you could see right away that the truth and the reality the truth and the agenda-driven narrative were completely opposite, and that the agenda-driven narrative was running this kid down and attacking him with false facts and false statements. So it was obvious from the beginning that there was a very good defamation case here. This is probably the best, defamation case in history, because Nicholas Sandman was a minor who had done nothing wrong, never done anything. I mean, when he went to the mall in D.C. for the March for Life with the school, that was the first time he had ever actually left home without his family, other than going on vacation. So literally he's there, on his first trip out of town, and this happened. So, great kid, great family, terrible situation, but it was clear from the beginning that the media was making huge mistakes.
So, I mean, from my perspective and probably most people's perspectives, you see the media lying and stretching the truth almost all the time. I mean, almost every headline you see, there's an element of propaganda or manipulation. What things are needed in order to take it from, I don't know, maybe misreporting, or it could be, just, I guess they got that one wrong, to, intentionally defaming someone? Or I guess, does defamation have to be intentional?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be intentional, especially when you deal with a private person, private figure. If somebody criticized you or me about this broadcast, we're basically functioning as public figures by going on this broadcast, right? Mm-hmm. So, you could say a lot of bad stuff about us and get away with it. Say it's my opinion or whatever, so-and-so's a racist or white supremacist or whatever crazy stuff they want to say, and get away with it. But when you deal with a person who's just like your neighbor, who doesn't, put himself out there in the public sphere, you can't do that, because they can hold you liable if they just prove that you were negligent. For a public figure to hold a media company liable, they have to prove that they acted with actual malice. So they'd have to show that basically they knew what they were reporting was false. Whereas in Nicholas Sandman circumstance, you only have to show that what they were reporting was negligent. So I think you kind of asked, how do you get a handle on that? The Clarence Thomas, who's kind of the functioning conservative Chief Justice on our U.S. Supreme Court, has said that he thinks that we need to revisit the actual malice standard established back in the 60s in the case New York Times v. Sullivan, and tone that down a little bit, and maybe take it back to where we were before, where you didn't have to prove actual malice. I wouldn't be surprised if there were a case that came before the Supreme Court adjusted the field a little bit. Like if you go to England or Great Britain, if they publish anything wrong, they're almost immediately liable, and they have a press. They report things every day. You don't need to have this crazy actual malice protection to have a free and functioning media. They don't have this at all in Great Britain, and their media functions perfectly fine. So we need to get away from the actual malice standard and change it back probably to the way it was before the New York Times v. Sullivan case.
So when people see, when they see a settlement like this, and I know you probably can't talk about the amount of money that's been received, that Nicholas has received in these settlements, but it's a lot of money. When the original suit was filed, I think it was $250 million was the one against the Washington Post. What goes into determining those types of damages? Someone could look at an incident like this and say, yes, this is, there were lies about Nicholas. This could damage his future job prospects, his future career, his future business dealings. How do you figure that number out?
Well, as an attorney, there's a couple of different areas of damages that you can pursue. There's like economic damages. So in other words, if you're Nicholas Sandman, you're never going to work for a bank, right? Nobody's ever going to hire him, because half the customers are going to be kind of more on the woke spectrum, and they're going to say, I don't want to deal with that person. Big law firm's not going to hire him. Any publicly traded company's not going to hire him. He's just going to have a hard time getting a job. And if you look at the expected earnings of somebody when they're 18 years old and just starting off in college, and had otherwise very good prospects, that's millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then there's additionally, so those are just like economic damages. And then you add on to that the emotional distress involved in living through something like that. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of people, so let's say I'm just making numbers up here, but let's say you got $10 million in future lost wages. A lawyer could say, well, I want $100 million on top of that in pain and suffering. So you jack those numbers up, not that that's not necessarily what a jury's going to award. They could, And then you add on to that what they call reputational harm, and that is the fact that outside of work, you go to work and you don't get hired, or you've got to run your own business. Your job prospects are different than they would have been otherwise. But think about you're 25 years old, you meet the girl of your dreams, she's great, and then you find out that her parents think that you are just this terrible person, and they still know who Nicholas Sandman was, and then you got to deal with that your whole life. And there's already many documented circumstances where he's faced, cancellation efforts and things like that. So to spend every day, even in your personal relationships, I could see a jury saying $250 million. And, we intend to ask a jury at some point on some of these cases. We still have 6 of these cases going. So we will be asking somebody for a big number. Not that they'll all go to trial. Probably some of them will settle eventually, but somebody's going to trial, or a group of people are going to trial. And so the jury of Kentuckians will have their opportunity to say what they think. And they may just say, we really think this is terrible. We're going to award a big number. So that's how you get to a number like that.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. So kind of transitioning, I think it's a good point to kind of transition to this Kyle Rittenhouse case. Obviously different in a lot of ways, but also similar in a lot of ways, especially the element of both captured on video. Of course, Kyle's was, he was, and Kyle has been to trial and has been vindicated for defending himself, for self-defense. But in the same way, Kyle has been painted as a white supremacist. He's been painted as being anti-Black Lives Matter because he was at that protest or riot, however you want to categorize it, defending private property there. So when you look at these two cases, what similarities, or are there any similarities between the two from a media coverage and defamation aspect?
Yeah, I think there's 2 big similarities, and there's probably some smaller ones that we could tease out of this, if we talked about it for a little while. But the big one are both that these people were minors at the time that this happened. And so they, Nicholas was 16, Kyle was 17, I believe. And so the media voluntarily went in with this, full on attack on people under the age of 18 and attacked them pretty viciously. And really, if anybody had looked at the facts on both circumstances and paid careful attention, they might have, they really wouldn't have had a basis to make the accusations that they made. I mean, there was nothing necessarily about what Kyle Rittenhouse did that would suggest that he was engaged with with some kind of racist agenda. There just it wasn't there. And the same with Nick Sandman. I mean, he went to the White House gift shop and bought a MAGA hat and happened to be wearing that when he was confronted by a professional protester, Nathan Phillips, and they blew that up totally out of proportion. And the truth was immediately available on YouTube. I saw the true statement of facts Saturday evening before these major publications had really run their big stories. And so it was out there. And we have evidence, for example, that the full video from the Black Hebrew Israelites that showed everything that happened was available before the media reported and easily found on YouTube. So, in both circumstances, the kids were underage. Similarity number 1, similarity number 2, they were attacked despite the fact that there were, video evidence that would show otherwise to them. I think the third thing would be that there's, as with the media, and none of your listeners or viewers they all know that all the media wants to say is everybody's, white supremacist and a racist. It's just it's whatever the reason is, it's a clearly obvious agenda to anybody that's thinking about it at all. So they just want to promote their agenda. And I think that the other thing that I've said on a lot of interviews, on these similarities is I really think that when that these people are smart enough to figure out that what they're saying is not true, because it's obvious, right? They know that it's not true, yet they say it anyway, and that happened with both circumstances. The only conclusion I'm left with as to why they would do that is that they want to do it. They want to go out, and especially they want to destroy younger people, because what happens when you destroy somebody's child is A, that kid's destroyed. B, every other kid in America that comes anywhere close to this is like, wow, what just happened? And then they're scared, and then the parents are horrified, and the families are horrified. So everybody thinks about protecting their children, and what that does is it creates it censors. People are self-censoring everywhere they go. Son, daughter, don't let that happen to you. Grandson, granddaughter, don't let that happen to you. Be careful. Never say anything about this. Keep your mouth shut. Don't take up any opinions that anybody can cancel you on, or else it'll, disrupt your whole future. So it creates a climate of intense fear. And so I think that young people are a very useful tool for the, woke corporatist media to attack with, or to attack, and it creates a climate of fear, and then it creates a climate of self-censorship.
And there can be blowback to that, which of course we've seen with this defamation settlement, and
Right.
more to come, and maybe more coming with Kyle Rittenhouse. So how much do you think that can factor into holding the media accountable, and actually having them, and I think you're right. I think it's intentional what they're doing, setting this narrative and staking ground, trying to use these young individuals to influence the conversation and to scare people. Mm-hmm. So how much do you think you can use defamation lawsuits in order to really protect free speech?
It's all you really have as a tool. So it's the most effective tool with regard to the, attacking young people and private figures and accusing them of being white supremacist or engaging in racist misconduct. I think it can have an effect, and it may very well over time. For example, in my cases, if we were able to achieve a substantial verdict, it might get people to say, well, let's just sit this one out, or let's be extra careful in this circumstance. But it really depends upon the desire of the media to pursue the agenda and the narrative of white supremacism and racism and all that goes along with those things. So if they really want to pursue those agendas, then they may do it anyway, because all these entities are multi-billion-dollar publicly traded companies that they could get tagged for $100 million judgment, and it wouldn't just be that much it'd be 0.1% on their annual profits. And maybe it's more important to them to report falsehoods to support the narratives that they pursue than it is to pay large judgments. But certainly over time, judgments and lawsuits do serve their purpose. They have in many circumstances where they've disciplined rogue entities, whatever it may be, different areas of the law over the years. Litigation has been very helpful.
Okay, so we've talked about the media coverage, and pushing back against that and settlements against them. What about an individual, someone like, say Joe Biden, per se, who back in September of last year, he sent out a tweet that said, there's no other way to put it, the president of the United States refused to disavow white supremacists on the debate stage last night. Then right below that tweet was a video, and in that video had it had Kyle Rittenhouse holding his gun, walking the streets of Kenosha. So, is there a defamation suit? And this is before Joe Biden was elected president. I guess that's important to point out. Is there a suit against someone like Joe Biden for defamation?
Yeah, and I hope this kind of academic answer isn't too long, but if you stick with me, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, sure.
So, if Joe Biden were in office when he made that statement, he's probably immune, right? He's probably, has a privilege to speak on matters of public concern and public interest. And I know that there are plenty of cases out there where politicians have said terrible things, and courts have said, we can't hold you liable. You're in office. You have a privilege to speak this way on these topics. In this circumstance, Joe Biden was a private citizen running for president, so he was not in office. So he doesn't have that privilege. And he used that tweet on September 30, 2020, just before the election. He used that tweet to basically as a campaign tool, right? It's like an advertisement. And when you accuse, so if you advertise something and it's defamatory and one of your commercials says so-and-so's this or that, nobody's going to suggest that you have immunity for a campaign advertisement. And so that's in essence what this was. So he's not elected. He's basically running an ad, and he's using Kyle Rittenhouse as a tool to get votes. And what he's doing is he's basically accusing Kyle Rittenhouse of being a white supremacist. And when they show him with the rifle, saying that he's engaged in racist misconduct. So the law in the United States is pretty clear that if you call somebody a racist, it's not necessarily actionable unless it's somehow tied to the fact that you were doing something about it. So you could say, my neighbor Bob is such a jerk. He's the worst racist I know. Okay, that's probably not a lawsuit. But if you say my neighbor Bob is a racist, he's the worst person I know, can you believe that he fired 2 people from his company because they were whatever, skin color or orientation or whatever it may be? Or skin color, it'd have to be racial. So that would be racist misconduct, and that's actionable. And in this circumstance with Joe Biden being in office, it's racist misconduct. Now, the interesting thing is that Donald Trump, when he was president, was sued for defamation by a woman who was a contestant on, I'm forgetting the show that he was the judge on. But when he was, she sued, or she said that he sexually assaulted her. He said she's a liar. She sued him for saying for his statement that she's a liar. And the courts allowed that suit to proceed, even though he was in office as president, because they said, you cannot protect a person for their acts, that are personal in nature. So it was like a personal tort. Now, he was also not in office when that occurred. So it's very similar to the Joe Biden situation. And if you look back to the 90s, there's a case where Paula Jones, if you recall her, was sued then President Clinton for a number of things, but including defamation for statements he made about her, saying that she was a liar. And those claims were allowed to proceed. And the Supreme Court said, you can sue a sitting president for his private conduct, with some phrase like "no person is above the law." So I'm certain that if Kyle Rittenhouse wanted to sue the president, he may not for a variety of reasons, but if he wanted to, I think he has a viable lawsuit. Now, judges get to make that decision about whether something is defamatory. So a case like that could be lost early on by a judge who just, said, I'm not going to go there. But I do think that under the state of the law today, it is actionable.
What's your gut feeling? Do you think it'll happen? Do you think Kyle Rittenhouse will sue the president?
It would be pure speculation. I've never met Kyle or spoken with him. I don't know him. I feel a little bit bad even talking about his cases, but there is some validity in understanding all this. If I were advising him, I'd say, yeah, we got to pull the trigger on this. I think it's despicable. We just have to stop using children, as throwaway objects. People that we can destroy and not even worry about it. I think children just deserve some anonymity at least, or they deserve to be left alone. They should never have used him for a campaign ad, and it's just highly unethical in my view to have done that.
Yeah. And I don't know if this would be a defense for Joe Biden, because it is his Twitter account, but if he's not running his Twitter account and it's his team sending it out, could he use that in order to wiggle out of a lawsuit?
Yeah, that's a good one, because I actually thought about that. I swear I was like walking around and I thought about that, and I said, it's his campaign account. And I was thinking about me deposing the president of the United States and saying, Mr. President, is that your smiling face on that Twitter account? I don't think he could get away with it. I think it's issued in his name, and you could certainly sue his campaign for it as well. So even if they let him go, the campaign would be on the hook. But you raise a good point. Judges have a lot of discretion in how they deal with these things. So, there's a lot of factors, hard to predict exactly how it would play out.
Well, Todd, I appreciate you coming on the show. Is there anything, I'm a novice at this, asking about defamation. Is there anything very important that I missed that I didn't ask you about that you think is an important point to make?
No, I just, I guess the most important thing I could leave your viewers and listeners with is the idea that they need to be alert to this. If something happens in their community, where they're attacked or there's an attempted cancellation, things like that, where people try to censor their freedom of speech, they need to just know that they may have a remedy, to fight back against censorship and cancellation. I've represented some people that have been pretty aggressively canceled, and we've found some creative ways to try to make people pay for that. And I think in general that we need to push back against cancellation, push back against people getting fired for expressing religious conviction, push back against people being fired for making the wrong political statement. The people need to be respectful of their employers, but at the same time, you just can't, fire people, cancel people, throw people out, for things that 5 years ago nobody would have even thought much of. So society's changed, and we need to be alert to that and recognize that there may be a remedy out there.
Right. I mean, today people are getting fired for not putting a certain pharmaceutical in their arm, and not able to work for their employer anymore. So these are certainly crazy times.
For sure.
But Todd, just want to give you time to plug anything, website, social media, anything else that you got going on that you want to let people know about.
Yeah, I've got a website. It's toddmcmurtrylaw.com, and just my name with law.com on it. And I put stuff out, a newsletter and so forth, if anybody wants to follow that. And I'm on Twitter at Todd_McMurtry. And I'm also on Parler at Todd McMurtry. So I post stuff there, and I think some of it's pretty interesting. So if anybody's interested, they can sign up for the newsletter or just follow me there.
All right, Todd. Thanks for coming on the show.
Todd, appreciate it. Take care.
Hope you all enjoyed that interview on Finding Freedom. Another awesome guest. And hopefully you guys also have subscribed to the Lions of Liberty podcast, and you're getting all 3 of our unique shows in your little listening device delivered to your ears. If you haven't, please do that. Just go to your app, you know how to do it, and subscribe. You can also leave us a 5-star review and a nice comment. We would prefer if you did it on Apple Podcasts, but anywhere you can on the internet, please leave us a positive comment. Also, if you want to support us, we would love that too. Please go to patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. You can support us for as little as a couple bucks, or if you get in at a higher level, you get merchandise and access to us, and all the way up to you can advertise on the show or get to even produce a show. So check it all out, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And if you haven't checked it out yet, please consider checking out the Lions of Liberty store, where we have some awesome t-shirts. We have a Taxation is Death t-shirt with an awesome design. We have a Wax On, Tax Off t-shirt. And we have our brand new design, our Hands Up, Don't Nuke t-shirt. I'm not going to lie to you. It is our best t-shirt we've ever made. So go to lionsofliberty.store. You need to buy this t-shirt. Hands Up, Don't Nuke. It has a really dorky looking redneck guy with his hands up. Hands Up, Don't Nuke in big letters with the bombs pointed at him. It is phenomenal. You need this shirt at lionsofliberty.store. And if you're in the Pride, you get a discount on anything you buy in the store. So you do both of those things and you win. That's all I got, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. This is John Odermatt signing off. Always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.